This is Daily Blast Live. We're talking about what you're talking about.
Oh my gosh.
Are you insane? This is a sham.
No. Nope.
Y'all, just
It's
stop.
finally here. Drum roll.
Welcome to Daily Blast Live. I'm Erica in for Sam. I got my brother Al here, and the good sis Lindsey Granger is joining from home. And we are also joined by Miss Cheryl Lee Ralph. Hey, Miss Cheryl.
Look at you.
We're always so excited.
To see you all today.
Yes, we're so excited to have you because when it comes to representation, Miss Cheryl Lee Ralph's role on Broadway and in Hollywood inspired little black girls who dream of being a star. And she's here to celebrate the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Miss Cheryl, Queen, it is, we always hold space for you at this table, so we're just honored to have you back.
Thank you very much. And on this day, not just any holiday, but truly a day of service. You know, this is a relatively young holiday, national holiday, celebrating Martin Luther King Jr.'s life and the service of and dedication of his life to his country. And I believe that this is probably in these times right now, a day where whatever differences we have as people, whatever it is, let us at least consider putting them all aside to see what we can contribute to our country, to our communities, to our society for the better. This is the day to do that. This day, this holiday in January, what can we do to make things better for all of us?
Well, let's talk about the legacy and the service that went behind this day. You were a little girl during the 1968 March on Washington. What do you remember most about that time?
I remember being so fascinated that so many people were there fighting for the rights of people of color. At that time, they were colored people. They were Negroes. That people were coming together and that they were actually talking about making things better. I was a child up in the North, so I wasn't as familiar with the ways of the South. It was just someplace I visited every now and then for a summer for my father's people. But I was just so full of hope, a child's hope, that things could be better, that racism could be over, that in listening to his words, that I would be judged by the content of my character and not the color of my skin and the awful names people took to call you sometimes.
Well, that leads us right into talking about another trailblazer that we obviously just recently lost, Sidney Poitier, such an important part of the civil rights movement, and obviously we talked about him ad nauseum on the show, but we want to hear from you, Mrs. Ralph. Talk to us about what he meant to you.
Mr. Poitier cast me in my very first film. I was 19 years old, fresh out of Rutgers University, and he cast me in A Piece of the Action, the last of a trilogy of movies that he did with Bill Cosby. And he taught me so much. He took time with me as a mentor to pour into me as a young artist, lessons that to this day I still carry with me. You know, because of Mr. Poitier, I don't spend a lot of time on set laughing and talking. I spend more time with my dialogue, with my script, because one of the things he said to me was, that's your responsibility. That script is your responsibility when we are making this movie. I've never forgotten that. Such a good man, such a kind spirit, and a true girl dad.
That's right.
Yeah.
Now, Ms. Ralph, racism is still obviously very much of a problem in America, and so it's easy to get discouraged as we continue to push forward and honor Dr. King's dream. What do you tell people that are in that place of discouragement?
I think back to a time when that man, let's think about Mr. Poitier. and his list of friends. I mean, they weren't just Black friends. I mean, when he called on people to join him, to join Martin Luther King Jr., there were the likes of Aretha Franklin and Marlon Brando, Harry Belafonte and Burt Lancaster, Sammy Davis Jr. and Paul Newman, and his wife, Joan Baez. She was the one who opened the great speech, you know, with her rendition of "We Shall Overcome." Bob Dylan, who at the time had done a song to, had sung this song to Emmett Till. He brought all of these artists of every race, class, and stripe together to fight for the rights of all people. Black people, colored Negro people, the right to vote. The right to vote. It hasn't been that long that we've had the right to vote. And when it seems that due to racism and other such things and not being valued as a full human being, that we may be losing that right, I say don't give up the fight, because there have been so many drum majors for justice. Today is a new day, and it's always the right time to do something right.
Yes,
a lot
ma'am.
of people have been having bad thinking. Change it into some good thinking. Now's the time to do something right.
Well, Ms. Cheryl, on that note, first of all, it's always an honor to have you. You gave us our marching orders this time last year to not only honor those who came before us, who put us in these seats, but also to take that torch and move on. So we're continuing with those marching orders. Yes. Thank you so much. You always have a home here at DBL.
You are family.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Carry
We'll be right
on.
back.
It's a day of service. Do something good.
Thank you.
Every 10 years, the U.S. Census Bureau is obligated to count the number of people living in America. The 2020 census was a year late because of the pandemic, and results were finally released last summer. But Verified viewer Brenda says she just received a survey in the mail for the American Community Survey. So let's verify. Is the American Community Survey legit? Our sources are the U.S. Census Bureau, the U.S. Code of Laws, and congressional records. The U.S. Census Bureau has its big moment every 10 years, but that doesn't mean it sits idle the rest of the time. Let's go back for a minute. In 1940, the Census Bureau began asking more detailed questions beyond general demographics. This data proved popular with legislators and businesses, and so the number of questions grew. Eventually, this became known as the long-form census, but this was more time-consuming, and the Bureau found many people opted to just not fill it out. Lawmakers and the Bureau debated how to balance accurate data and timeliness for decades. Finally, in 2005, the census launched the American Community Survey. It's a monthly form sent to 1 in every 480 homes in the 50 states, D.C., and Puerto Rico. The ACS is a longer, anonymous questionnaire that gathers more in-depth data than the census, such as a household education, employment, home ownership, and income. So it's true. The American Community Survey is legit, although, like most things, there are scammers trying to use the survey to trick you into revealing personal information. The Census Bureau says it may contact you by mail, phone, email, or text message. A field representative might even stop by your home in person if they can't reach you. The Bureau maintains a website to help people figure out if a link or letter is real.
In honor of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day, we're taking a look at some entertainment stories that celebrate the Black community. The Super Bowl halftime show, which is coming up very soon, is less than a month away. As we've mentioned, Dr. Dre is one of the headliners. He'll perform alongside hip-hop legends Mary J. Blige, Snoop Dogg, Eminem, and Kendrick Lamar. Not only is this the first time that we are going to see them all perform on stage together, but it's also the first time a halftime show will be headlined by rap and R&B artists. Now, when I first heard this story, first of all, we were on the show when we found out what the Super Bowl lineup was going to be, and I remember distinctly talking about it in terms of the influence on American and international pop culture. So we never called this a Black show, even though all the artists are Black. Does that stick out to you, Al?
Yeah, you know, Erica, because I don't think it is a Black show. I think hip hop culture is American culture, period. Can you name anybody who's the top rock and roll band right now?
I don't know.
Why not? Because hip hop is everything. Hip hop, Lindsay, is in spin classes. Hip hop is on TikTok with old grandmas doing the latest dance.
That's true.
It is our culture. So the fact that it's being headlined by people, Lindsay, that were lampooned, that were called, street people, drug dealers, killers, all that. Now we look, they have shows with Martha Stewart, connections with Apple Music. They're billionaires. They're moguls. They are our culture. They are the embodiment of what America is. It is like they took their pain and figured out a way to make it marketable, and they certainly did.
And this is also like a culmination of what happens when you embody diversity, because if you understand the origin of why the NFL is probably moving in this route is because when they had the Super Bowl in Atlanta, they had no hip hop artists whatsoever. They were treating hip hop like a fad. Mind you, like Al said, it's been the dominant source of music for the last 2 decades. And so when they collaborated with Roc Nation and Jay-Z, he made it imminent to bring in artists of color, for bringing in J-Lo and other artists along the way. And now to be in Los Angeles and not have Dr. Dre is like, it's like being in Atlanta and having none of the Atlanta hip hop scene, which they did a couple of years ago. And so I think it's important to look at the change that's been made behind the scenes. So a lot of people were like slandering Jay-Z for his decision to move forward and work with the NFL. But I think you can make change from within sometimes a little bit better than you can outside just throwing stones.
First of all, I'm so glad that you made that point, Lindsay, because, oftentimes, especially when we see injustices happening, inequity, inequality, a lot of people just want to give up and they want to leave. But when you leave, you lose all of your power. So the idea that you can make change from inside the club as opposed to telling people how to act from outside the club is very important, but it also takes a certain amount of tenacity. I'm not saying that this is for everybody, but I'm saying it for the people who are comfortable with the discomfort. Secondly, I was reminded in my ear that Eminem is also on the halftime show, and he's not Black. But
but he is the embodiment of hip hop, and you know what? That's so interesting that you said that, Erica. Yeah, he's not Black, but hip hop is bigger than African Americans. We're only 14% of the population. So why is this music so popular? Because people like Eminem that came from a hard scrabble life, people related to that. People related to his upbringing. And he was discovered by somebody else that also had a rough upbringing.
Right.
And this is why he's been a household name for 20-some years, because people related to him just as they related to his predecessor. So I just really appreciate what you had to say, Lindsay. It was what you said about Jay-Z initially getting pushback and how he stayed the course is why we're here today. That was a great point.
Yes, yes.
And to go back to what Erica was saying, like, change from within is what Jay-Z is doing, but I also don't say that to bash what Colin Kaepernick is doing as well. Change from outside and just completely detaching himself. I think that that's an important fight too, but just like we're celebrating MLK today, he's not the only person, as Bakari Sellers brought up, that was fighting the fight in the way that they wanted to do it. And so you had people like Malcolm X, on the other hand, doing a different approach. And so I think everybody was essential towards making change, and it just really is important to look at which type of fighter or activist you want to be. You have to choose something, though. You can't just be still and let things happen to you, especially on a day like today when we're remembering how important it is to continue to keep the hope alive and push forward.
Well, on that note, let's remember some other names, because before we go, we want to mention some people who broke barriers in the entertainment world this past year. MJ Rodriguez became the first transgender actress to win a Golden Globe for her role on the show Pose. Country singer Mickey Guyton made history as at the Grammys, being the first Black female solo artist to be nominated in a country music category. She also became the first Black female artist to host a major country music award show. And my girl Michaela Cole won her first Emmy for outstanding writing for her groundbreaking show I May Destroy You. And Billy Porter, who won his first Emmy, making him the first openly gay Black man to win an outstanding lead actor in a drama. I think this all goes to show that, you know, there's so many ways to represent the culture. We are all so different and have diversity within the Black culture, and I think it's important that we recognize that. Coming up on DBL, we'll introduce you to a man that is changing lives with a simple game of chess. Stay with us.
On January 7th, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention Director Rochelle Walensky was interviewed by ABC's Good Morning America. Now, a quote from the discussion is being widely shared on social media, including a tweet from Donald Trump Jr. claiming 75% of COVID deaths were in people with at least 4 comorbidities. So, let's verify. Was CDC Director Rochelle Walensky referring to all COVID-19 deaths when she said 75% of deaths were in people with 4 comorbidities? Walensky was quoted responding to a question about whether COVID-19 vaccines are effective enough for us to start rethinking how we live with the virus. Journalist Cecilia Vega cited a CDC study when framing her question, but that was left out of the original broadcast. Walensky answered by citing a study of more than 1 million vaccinated people.
A study of 1.2 million people who were vaccinated between December and October, and demonstrated that severe disease occurred in about 0.015% of the people who were received their primary series, and death in 0.003% of those people. The overwhelming number of deaths, over 75%, occurred in people who had at least 4 comorbidities. So really, these are people who were unwell to begin with.
It showed only 1 in every 30,000 actually died, and of those, 75%, or 28 people, had at least 4 comorbidities. However, the broadcast cut off the first part of her answer, leaving the quote out of context. So, it's false that CDC Director Rochelle Walensky was referring to all COVID-19 deaths when she said 75% of deaths were in people with 4 comorbidities. The interview was originally aired out of context, which led to misleading tweets. ABC has since released its entire interview with Walensky. With your Verify, I'm Brandon Lewis.
Welcome back to DBL. We're looking back at a man who is truly an inspiration. He's teaching kids in Compton how to play chess. But as we found out, he's also giving them the tools to make all the right moves in life. Here's his story.
Damon Fletcher is teaching kids in Compton how to realize their inner kings and queens through chess.
On your march, get set, go.
Damon started playing as a teen, but he aspired to be an actor, not a chess master. After wanting more stability in his life, he started teaching chess to foster kids and later developed Train of Thought, a chess program for kids as young as 5.
Does anybody see why the rook can't move?
Because on the next move, maybe the bishop will capture the king.
Now, Damon has hundreds of kids in his program in Compton and has plans to expand it to school divisions around the country and even the world.
Damon, we're so excited to welcome you to DBL.
Thank you for having me.
Here's your background. You started playing chess at age 13. I want to know what impact chess had on your life early on. What did it do for you? What road did it put you on?
You know what? Ultimately, it was decision making. You know, in chess, you know, you're making decisions after every move. And in life, so much of who we are is made up of the decisions that we make. And I, you know, ended up doing really well in college. And I got back to LA and I started looking for my friends, and a lot of them had very different outcomes, drastically different. Some of them on drugs, some of them selling drugs, just lots of different things. And I just wondered what the difference was. You know, what was it that gave me such a dramatically different outcome? And it was chess. There was no doubt about it. All roads led to chess.
So you're not only talking about it, you being about it, right? So let's talk about train of thought. Why did you want to start teaching kids in Compton how to play chess?
I just, I just know that there are so many challenges that like real life challenge, like adult challenges that kids are dealing with at a very early age. And I just know how profound a game chess is. I mean, that's one of the beauties of the game, is that you're creating and solving your own problems. And it kind of has that in common with life. You know, you incur these problems, and like I said before, so much of it is made up by the decisions that we make. And so, you know, the game just creates this beautiful platform for you to be able to practice without all the, you know, the heartache and the falls that you have to take in life, and just learn those lessons on the board. And so, it just produces amazing outcomes for the kids that we serve, and I had to share it.
Queen's Gambit. We know it went crazy. It's changed the popularity of chess and the popularity of girls with chess, I particularly think.
Let's play speed chess.
I know, but you're not so good at that, remember?
I'll bet you 10 I can beat you.
Every evening, with all my dish work shoot, I cook my baby, and let's go watch her with you. I met some movie.
How do you think the popularity of the Queen's Gambit has impacted train of thought for you, your program?
I've been getting a lot of parents that have been wanting to learn how to play all of a sudden. I've been teaching their kids for years.
Now they want to know.
And then they see the Queen's Gambit, they said, Mr. Fletcher, can you teach me? I want to learn how to play. So that's been cool. You know what I mean? There's been school districts that I've been knocking on doors, you know, for years, trying to, tell them about this game of chess and, implement the program in your school district. And it wasn't until a lot of the, the district staff members see the Queen's Gambit, they're like, wait a second.
Right, you've got
we got this guy right here.
Yeah, right.
He's been trying to do this the whole time. Let's give him a call. And so that's been wonderful.
With chess, there's this one place that nobody can touch. And I think it's such a special, important thing, especially for kids coming from tough circumstances, children of color, people that are marginalized. So, man, you're doing incredible things. We appreciate you, bro.
Yeah, the kids, it's very special for them. And yeah, they all kind of let you know in one way or another. Kids write letters to us from time to time. Even the young ones, they hug you around the knees when it's time for you to go, and they don't let go. You know what I mean? They want to come home with you. Kids ask, can you be our teacher all the time?
Yeah. Damon, thank you so much for talking with us on DBL. Now, for more information on Train of Thought, which I'm sure our viewers want to know, visit chesstrain.org. You've been a light in our day. Thank you so much. We'll be right back.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Pleasure's all here, man. Thank you.
Thanks.
You made a New Year's resolution. It's still probably too early to know if it's become an actual habit yet. For years, people have said that it takes 21 days to build a habit. But is that true? Let's verify. Our sources for this question: Jackie Greco, a licensed clinical mental health counselor with Sun Counseling and Wellness, and a study on habit forming done by Philippa Laley. The thought that it takes 21 days to build a habit goes back decades.
That is actually a myth that came from the 50s when a plastic surgeon wrote a paper about when patients are getting used to looking at their new face after they've received plastic surgery, and how he noticed that it took an average of 21 days for an old mental image to dissolve and for a new image to take place, which then I think was misinterpreted and rolled with to become the idea of being, 21 days of completing a task. That means that you've built a new habit.
The study by Philippa Laley took 96 volunteers and investigated the process of forming a habit. The volunteers chose an eating, drinking, or activity behavior to carry out daily in the same context for 12 weeks. Each day, they recorded whether they carried out the behavior. 82 of the participants provided sufficient data for analysis.
What she found was that on average, it takes about 2 months or 66 days before a new behavior becomes automatic. For some people, it took as little as 18 days. For some people, it took as much as 254 days to form a new habit.
There is no one reason for why it takes some people longer and some people shorter to form a habit. Instead, Greco says there are a variety of reasons.
It really depends. It depends on the behavior itself that you're trying to change. It depends on the person, and it depends on the circumstances that are both in and out of people's control when they're trying to change.
The study found missing one opportunity to perform the behavior did not affect the habit formation process. Greco agrees.
When we are only focused on the goal of whether or not we completed that task, what we're not focusing on are building those conscious behaviors and processes to make sure that we're actually incorporating a new habit into our daily life.
So we can verify that no, it doesn't always take 21 days to form a habit. With your Verify, I'm Megan Bragg.
The annual deadline for Americans to file their taxes is typically on or around April 15th. However, for the past 2 years, the IRS has pushed the tax filing deadline past April because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Amid the current surge of Omicron, it's clear that COVID-19 is still impacting a lot of people. So let's verify. Is the IRS pushing the tax deadline again this year? We went to these sources for an answer. In a January 10th press release about the tax filing season, the IRS confirmed this year's deadline is April 18th, and there's no indication that that will change. That date was also confirmed by TurboTax and CPA Practice Manager, a resource magazine for accounting and tax professionals. According to the IRS, April 18th is also the deadline for individuals to request an extension. If the extension request is granted, their new deadline would be October 17th. With your Fast Fact, I'm Adiande Till.
Welcome back. Are you trying to get healthier in 2022? Well, you're not alone. So here are some things you should know about exercise and fitness before diving into a new fitness plan. We're chatting about it on DBL's Focus on Fitness, presented by QB. Well, it's time to break large goals down. You can't just wake up and run 5 miles, okay? So stop it. Start with a walk, then work up to longer runs. Experts say this will form solid fitness habits and help you achieve a healthier lifestyle. And QB is a great way to get some quick exercise regardless of physical ability or age. So try their under-desk elliptical at home. Call 1-800-556-2089 or visit QB.com to learn more. I'm trying to get fit in 2022, kinda.
Absolutely. I'll just say this really quickly. Best fitness advice I've ever gotten has come from that office. Patty, our beloved Patty, told me something is better than nothing. And I think about that all the time. And I don't have an hour, but I got 10 minutes. Get on the bike.
Get on a bike. Get on your QB. DBL is new every day. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place.